Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lasha Marienko, and you have reached high voltage. I am diving right into it today. Ask not, the Kennedys and the women they destroyed. I already did read part of Carolyn Bessette. However, I want to read it over again and just continue with this chapter. I've tried 3 times to upload and I can't do it on my phone. So I figured out how to do it. Now, I apologize about my appearance today. As you all know, we've been going through a bit with Sophie, and that takes all priorities over everything. Sophie's my child, my baby. I know she's 7 years old, but she's a dog. But she's a spirit and she's alive. And let's just pray for the best. However, Sophie's resting, which gives me an opportunity to dive into this book because it's so good. So if this video is not for the faint of heart, if you have a short attention span, it's not the book for you. And I'm just going to get right into it. The title on the thumbnail, Ask Not, the Kennedys and the Women They Destroyed. Chapter 1 is about Carolyn Bessette. The minute she said yes, she regretted it. Caroline could say that about so much of her life recently, but nothing felt quite like this. She was going against her gut, trying to keep her husband happy, really trying to keep up appearances. Their marriage at its tenuous, by agreeing to fly with him in the small plane he was still learning to pilot. To a Kennedy wedding on the Cape, he was flying a point of pride for him and fear for her. I don't trust him. That's a quote from Carolyn Bessette. And Maureen Callahan did her homework when she wrote this book. I'm a little bit different than Cheer Denise's channel, because I am not going to interject on every page, even though I want to, and that's what I love about her. It's not me. So I will do my analysis at the end, because when you're reading a book, interjecting your thoughts based on your personal lens is great. But the whole reason of literature is for people to make up their minds. And when you have somebody who's very strong, I don't want to say self-righteous, and I'm not talking about any particular book reader. People want to give their opinions all the time. Today, and through this book, I'm reading it, you listen, you process, and I'm going to process, and let's have a conversation about each chapter on a live, for instance, tomorrow. So I'm going to read this chapter silently, and then tomorrow we'll go live and talk about it. Carolyn said this to family members, friends, the waitress at their favorite restaurant in Martha's Vineyard. She didn't think her husband had the patience, the diligence, the attention span, and really the humility to be a good pilot, to know when he shouldn't get in the air. He was still a student after all, but he had so much hubris. He didn't take his training seriously. He hadn't banked nearly the hours in the air, in daylight and at night, to pilot alone. He would break the rules, sneak and solo flights when he was supposed to have an instructor fly with him, but no one person abolished him or threatened to take away his training certificate. Nope, it was just John being a Kennedy, a rogue and rebel like his father, risk in the blood. Quotes, to Flight Safety Academy, the bravest people in aviation, unquote. John wrote to his instructors, quote, because people will only care where I got my training if I crash, unquote. Here's where I have to interject. If you talk about fear and negative things that haven't happened, you're putting it out into the universe. So stop. If you don't think you can do something, stop. If you think that you're ready for something when people say you aren't, listen. But the choice is always up to you. We are birthed, we make choices in life, and then there is the D word. You can't even say it on YouTube. John thought it was funny and Carolyn did not. John, unlike Carolyn, thought there was no way he'd ever have an accident, even though he'd had a cast on his ankle for the past 6 weeks, having broken it in a crash landing at a contraption called the Flying Lawnmower. He needed surgery on the ankle. John's doctor had just removed the cast that day. Now, before I go on, may I say that he would have been put on pain medication. 100%. It's not in here, but I'm telling you. Just call it a gut intuition. People make the worst decisions when they are overloaded with opiates. Opiates are fine in small doses, and sometimes people have to take them forever because of injuries. And that's not a good thing, but that's what happens to some people. But you take them properly. If his judgment was this off, that's not a Kennedy curse. That's his judgment, even though he was so tiny when his father passed away. You still absorb those things. I really want to have a discussion about this with all of you who watch. I've never been so serious about this. Not even Annalise Michael was I as serious about. But I will tell you right now, I do think she was possessed. There's no proof to prove either way. There's no scientific to prove what happened, and there's really no spiritual proof to what happened except for the family. But who will listen to the family when they were pretty much migrants in their own town? And that's why I didn't finish it. Now, this really upsets me, you know? It really does. Before, and even though John needed a cane to walk, and would need months of physical therapy, he swore the doctor had cleared him to fly. Liar. Liar. When I broke my femur, why do you think I don't drive? In Canada, if you do not renew your license every 5 years, You have to start the whole thing over again, and I'm 53. So I had my license when I was 47. But by the time I was 48, and I went through 3 surgeries, and this was before the other 2 from the medical malpractice that I went through in Canada. I can tell you, if you're using a cane, the doctor does not clear you to fly, and he would have been on pain medicine. It doesn't say that here, but it would impair his judgment, because I know what it's like, and my injury was far worse than his, and I never had physical therapy because I couldn't afford it. Jeez. Spoiled brat. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm saying it. I think he's spoiled and very, very tragic. This is tragic. And I know Jackie Onassis did everything that she could. Carolyn couldn't fully blame him. He was overconfident as usual. No one said no to John F. Kennedy Jr., heir to Camelot, the only living son of the beloved slain presidents, with movie star looks and charm to march. America's prince, the media called him. And whenever John wanted to do something, to become a lawyer, start a magazine, hell, run for president of the United States, everyone knew that was coming. The answer was always yes. Sure, yes. Everyone knew that was coming. Let's start you at the top of your field. Sometimes Carolyn would say no to John, just to say no, to habituate him to real life. It always stunned him. When they first started dating seriously after he had ghosted Carolyn, the formerly accommodating, easygoing Carolyn of a few years before, she recalibrated. She suddenly wasn't so available. She wasn't so understanding of his latefulness, forgivefulness, entitlement. She was forcing him to realize that other people were important too. She stood him up once. Stood him up. Hey, and if you think I talk too slow, which I do because I'm trying to pronounce the words exactly as they are, I'm not a professional speed reader. Just speed it up by 2 notches, and honestly, it does speed up the pace. But you have to do that individually on your own. But for now, I'm talking in my slow voice so that the words are clear and I'm not misunderstood. So she stood up to him once, meaning standing up to somebody is trying to engage the person with who they actually are, because sometimes people who don't know you can see more than you. This was before everyone had cell phones, no way for her to reach John F. Kennedy Jr. as he sat in a darkening Broadway theater, all eyes on him and the empty seat next to him, to say she had to work late. Carolyn expected John to be furious with her, but it only made him want her more. Familiar story to all of us, commoners. And Carolyn realized her superpower. She became the only woman in the world to tell JFK Jr. no. No, not okay. Don't believe like that. I won't put up with that. Say you're sorry. Do better. Don't take me for granted. And he got off on it. There was a picture that went around when they were going public. Carolyn on the boat in a thong bikini, John bent down in front of her, helping her into a wrap. That was their dynamic. Carolyn the dominant, John the submissive. Interesting. And Carolyn liked bossing him around. She got off on denigrating him, calling him a fag. Now, before YouTube, don't have a fit. It's from a book. And actually, the old term of fag are thistles. Okay? So that is a term in the dictionary. And it's not a derogatory term where people then start to use a beautiful language and turn it into slang. Like Lady Victoria Harvey, like Sarah Ranson, for another video. I just can't believe these rich, entitled people. It blows my mind. She should have known that her power over him would be fleeting. He's under so much pressure, Carolyn's sister said. It was 1997. Oh, and I remember this. Cindy Crawford, doesn't say this here, but I'm telling you before, Cindy Crawford was the first model on John F. Kennedy Jr.'s magazine in 1997, and it was called George, and it was about politics, all of that, and she dressed up as George Washington in the sexiest way ever. Cindy Crawford. I also have a Cindy Crawford and Oprah Winfrey truths about the way Oprah used to treat women the way Harvey Weinstein did. Is Stefan a beard? I think, yeah. At any rate, so Carolyn, George, barely 2 years old, had gone from being one of the most successful launches in industry history to a spectacular failure, teetering on the brink of, there's a lot of new language in this book that I've not read in years due to my concentration abilities or lack thereof. So I'll spell it, but it's insolvency. Worse, no one read it. Insolvency would be some Latin word derived from dissolving, you know? John, as editor-in-chief and face of the magazine, not only didn't have the esteem of his publishing peers, he was that's a tough word, laughingstock. Yeah. You know, even though I call out people on behavior, we will dive in to why John F. Kennedy was the way he was, okay? And it goes on in the book. I've read a lot of the book. So at any rate, New York City is screaming some variation of some headline, the hunk flunks. That's humiliating. When he did finally pass, his mother having arranged special circumstances for his third test, and the esteemed Manhattan District Attorney Robert Morgenta, Morgenthau, arranging a plum position for him. John's new colleagues were unimpressed. John would take his lunch hour shirtless in the park playing football. His first case was prosecuting a robber who had fallen asleep while committing the act and was awakened by the cops. law case was prosecuting a robber who had fallen asleep while committing the act and was awakened by the cops. Oh my God. That's pretty funny. I gotta stop there. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. That's probably the funniest thing in this book. Trust me, you're gonna want to relish in that little piece of comedy. Piece of comedy. Oh. Okay, in all seriousness, it's 20 minutes and 8 minutes and 10 minutes long. So that is a wrap. Welcoming, respecting aspects of all people's societies, including these rich people. You know, the very first thing that Maureen wrote in this book, if you watch the first episode, for inconvenient women everywhere. And then, before she even started talking about the Kennedys, she took out F. Scott Fitzgerald's quote from The Great Gatsby, which Leonardo DiCaprio, his performance in that movie compared to Robert Redford was absolutely Let's go live tomorrow and talk about this, okay? This is the first thing she wrote, and I remember the narration from watching the original The Great Gatsby and then watching Leonardo DiCaprio. However, I will say the woman who played the love interest was phenomenal, and I think that the man who played her husband was phenomenal, and I wish I knew their names right away. They're phenomenal actors. Do women like to be called actresses or actors? Why can't we be actresses? Actors, men, actresses, women. Why do women want to be called actors like a man? What's the difference? I mean, I'm all for feminism and everything, but I would have had no problem doing my job as a woman and staying home and having children and raising them. And I'm not insulting women who work, because that's what I did my whole life, and now I fully regret it. They were careless people. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness or whatever it was that kept them together, and let other people clean up the mess they had made. Ask not the Kennedys and the women they destroyed. I will see you tomorrow. I will be reading obviously more than that every day, but that I had to stop there because that really is the funniest thing in the book. And thank you for joining along. And this journey, it's not a journey. This, it's such a tick word, journey, a journey. In this book, which is a historical book of facts, we have a lot to discuss, how it impacted all of their lives, who they were as people. I want to dive into that as well, because she doesn't go along with excuses about why they were the way they were. That's not the way Megyn Kelly and Maureen Callahan are as individuals and as writers. She's not forgiving in the writing, and she shouldn't be. So I'm not a book critic at all. I'm not the bookworm. I'm me, and I am reading this book from beginning to end. I missed 2 days because of Sophie, not because of her, because it's my responsibility to care for my family. And if I don't have the ability to take care of my family at my age, it makes me feel terrible. But even with that, That's why I work at the kitchen. That's why I have an interview in 10 days. Again, because I didn't get the job I wanted, but I don't stop. I don't have Kennedy connections. None. And so it really is something to be said that the reason rich people do the stupidest things is because they have everything. They have everything. You know what? Watch the movie The Game with Michael Douglas and Sean Penn. Penn, I talked about this movie. Go to Netflix, watch The Game. What do you give to the man that has everything? And you know what Sean Penn did as his character, as Michael Douglas's brother? He showed him what was really important in life. And that's what these people don't understand. Now, the reason the Kennedy father was probably so hard on his sons is because he came from nothing. But if you give somebody power that wants it, like wants it, I fear that. You know, I never wanted power when I applied for the regional job as a regional supervisor position for Jenny Craig. I applied because it was more money. I didn't want the power. I wanted to secure money for my future. And it wasn't for me. And I should have stayed a trainer. I'm an excellent teacher. I love people. So I might be a little slower than other book readers. However, you will learn because I'm learning too. And if I can learn and walk again and dance again and start a petition and make these plans to make differences in other people's lives, you know what? I'm not ever letting anybody insult me again. And you know where this is coming from, random citizen? You know where it's coming from. We'll go live tomorrow we'll go live in a couple of days after reading more of this. And I really hope you join me, and I will let you know when the lives come on so we can discuss our thoughts on this book. And if you have any comments right now, shoot them to me. I love comments. You know, even the insults, I'm not putting them up anymore. You know why? It's kind of funny. Some of them were kind of funny and true. So, you know, I apologize if I embarrassed or hurt anybody. That wasn't my intent. I just know how hurt people can get by comments. Like really bad. And I was just trying to say, like, don't do that here. You know why? I just wanted to set a precedence for other people that are so afraid of comments they keep them off. That's not a good place to be in society. So on that note, being as it's a wrap, don't forget me goal. All right? Thank you, everybody.